What's going on, everybody? You've got the cardboard coach here with your boy, Coach Co. And team, today we've got a very special guest on the podcast here today. We've got Grayson from Cherry Collectables. How you doing today?
I'm really good, Coach. Yeah, really good.
I'm excited to have you. Cherry Collectables is a staple in the sports card hobby. It's specifically just doing God's work down there in Australia. And I mean, someone's got to be the intermediary there. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I want my audience to get to know you. I want to get to know you. I'm excited for this because unlike a lot of other people that I speak to on my podcast, I mean, we're on completely different time zones. You get information at different times than I do. We don't cross paths all the time at the same shows, like we're not going to accidentally run into each other. And so I think this will be a pretty cool conversation. And hopefully for my North American audience, shed a little bit of light on just how big collectibles are in Australia, but also globally, because you recently went to a show that we're going to be talking about that was the first of its kind in Asia. So let's strip some of this down. Let's talk a little bit about Cherry Collectables. How did it start? What gave you the idea for Cherry Collectables? And we'll kind of go from there, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's I mean, I think it got probably started when I was a kid. The
Yeah.
seed of it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't remember. I'll preface this whole interview by saying I've got a really bad memory.
That's okay.
And so uh, the facts and information I'm about to give you, if I was to leave a courtroom, there would be like a Wikipedia article about like, no, things happened in this order. Like it's just not. But I, I definitely remember collecting um, stickers of WWE or WWF at the time, and they came in gum. I collected that, and I collected Fleer Ultra X-Men. I collected Upper Deck Special Edition Basketball.
What
And
years what year is this approximately?
yeah, it's like 19, I think in 1993,
Okay.
94,
Makes sense. Yeah.
around then. And I can't remember exactly which one came first, but um, I I liked it. I probably liked it more than the other kids. Like it just uh, I remember I set up a stall at the high school that I was at to sell cards, and um, I got a job, like a shitty job. Like I'm sure that the boss of the card shop, because there was only one card shop in Tasmania, um, I'm sure he was just like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna let this kid do something because it's driving me nuts. So I did that, and kind of I guess the seeds were there. And when I went through university, I started buying Transformer action figures from the US on eBay, and then listing them on Australian eBay and making huge margins, um, because there was a real. I sort of noticed there was a real trust issue with people wanting to shop within their domestic region.
Yeah, like shipping overseas. I mean, even still, I find myself a little hesitant to ship overseas.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the addresses. Addresses are so different.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
it's like,
It's also like you never know how much postage is going to be, right? And so
mm,
if I'm shipping to the US or I'm shipping to Canada, like I know how much like a range roughly, but I can't even tell you, I can't even give you an estimate on how much it's going to cost to ship to Europe or even Australia.
yeah, and it's bad experiences. And um, just recently, I bought a sideshow premium format statue of the first Spider-Man, and it was like a 200 print run statue. And the guy was like, "I'm canceling this because you're not stateside." And I was like, "Man, I'll get someone
Yeah,
to I'll get someone
the
to pick
ship,
it up.
yeah, exactly.
I need this piece." And he's like, "Nah, it's too bad. It's canceled." So he canceled it. And it's a grail piece. Like it's so hard to find.
Did you get someone else to reach out to him? Like,
It was canceled. And like uh, my experience, like eBay. I'm wearing an eBay thing now. Um,
From
I
95. It says 95 on that shirt too.
yeah, I love eBay, and my collecting journey. I was just getting to it. The Transformers really started with eBay. My entrepreneurial journey started with eBay. Um, but I'm terrible with chasing up anything on eBay. I've just got my priorities in life, other than my family, drop so fast behind this juggernaut of trading cards and the business.
Yeah.
And so the amount of things that I've been stitched up with on eBay and haven't followed up, it's extraordinary. And it's it's scary. I don't like to look at it. Um, but it was, yeah, that was around, shipping. And so that's been a big part of this my whole time. Whenever we have meetings with eBay, it's the first thing that people bring up. It's those pain points around shipping. Anyway, so I got into selling eBay, selling transformer figures, and I learned a lot about customer behavior then, and went off on a different journey. I really wanted to work with racehorses, which I grew up with racehorses, and I love horses, um, and lost my job working with horses right at the start of the GFC, and needed to pivot. Uh, Somehow learned how to build sort of shitty websites, um, and um, and then, as fate would have it, I was on a date, like a second or third date, um, with a girl who's now my wife,
Wow.
and yeah, and so I'm on this date, and we went to this really shitty, like, market fair thing, um, and with like really bad sort of circus music playing in the background and crappy food vans and all that sort of stuff. And I bought a box of 0809 Upper Deck basketball retail. I didn't have any money. I was I was so broke. And it cost me like $40 and 40 Australian. I opened it and I got a jersey card of someone, I don't know, Orton Jamison or something
Yes.
like that. Like,
Okay.
it
I
was
mean,
bad, but when I got it, I was like, oh my God. Because the last time I'd opened cards, like, you didn't get jersey cards. I was like, oh my
yeah.
God, what's this worth? So I got home, like, heart's pounding in the car, get home, jump on eBay, flicking through, trying to find this card. And eventually, I couldn't find it for ages because no one's selling a
Of
shitty
course.
Anton Jamison jersey card. And so I think I'm rich for a fleeting moment. And then I discovered that I'm anything but rich. And, but I was like, I should have been able to find more of these cards quicker. And so I did a bit of research into it, and no one in Australia was doing the online part um, in any way that would sort of put me off. Just getting my microphone struggling, but that would put me off doing it. And so, yeah, built a crappy website, um, and that, I guess, was the start of that cherry journey. So yeah,
Can I ask you, did you buy these cards while you were on your date?
yeah.
And this is why you know you were meant to marry your wife.
Potentially, yeah. And so we actually collected. We collected. It was funny. Um, we had we got a few boxes in from Adam Martin from David Adams Card World,
Yeah.
which was a huge supporter of ours early on. Um, Asked him if I could use his photos because I didn't have time to take my own with a full-time job. He says fine. Asked him if I could copy his listing details. Still do. Um, so he was a massive supporter. It's heaps of product from heaps of product. Um, and uh, and so we got a couple of a few boxes of Bowman 48. I think it was. It was a really cool release, and we thought we'd do a preview box. And we opened this box together, and we got this amazing Jerry West patch auto. And I was like, oh, wow, it's a stunning card. Like, I'm going to get hundreds of thousands of YouTube views, and
Yeah.
everyone's going to buy this product from me. And that's exactly what I want. And weeks went by, and none of them had sold. And I'm like, what's going on? And then one of my friends was who was like giving us information at the time about cards was like, man, you got the best hit. And I was like, what? It's like, no one else is going to get a good hit now. That's gone. And I'm like, what? So that was the last of our preview product videos. Um,
You ruined it for everybody.
yeah, but so what we did, we went the other way. So we started just collecting Star Wars and Marvel cards, and so we collected them together. All the Star Wars Galaxy sets we collected, all the Marvel Beginning sets we collected together. So I mean, that was amazing. And she's a director in Cherry, which probably I guess is a little bit obvious, but she was also a massive part at the start of the support and um, taking the risks, which were they were small in comparison, but they were all the money we had every week
Yeah.
and all the additional time we had every week. Um, and you need buy-in, like you need serious buy-in for that.
Yeah.
So, mm.
And I mean, you need like commitment. You need like full commitment, right? Like, I mean, in both your relationship and in the business, right? And like, I can imagine that being, I mean, pretty terrifying.
Yeah, she had no, like it was my, um, not my dream, but my dream would have been with horses. But it was certainly um, me that was driving the train, and um, and yeah, I don't know how she was so confident. And I mean, numerous times in that journey where it was like, can I have all the money in the bank? Or there was one time we got uh, a guy had been sending me fake receipts, bank receipts, and so I'd run up what I thought was sales of like $20,000-$30,000 with this guy, and they were all fake. So there's no money, and the product's gone.
Wow.
And having that conversation with her, because I felt humiliated, and I felt like it was probably not my first and one, certainly not my last business mistake, but um, it was it was a point where I was like, I'm not cut out for this. And
Yeah.
and her support was unwavering. So we didn't get a cent of that back. Um, and I kind of always look forward with most things. I look forward. So yeah, I don't know. Cherry wouldn't be anything without that kind of support. And I think a lot of people discount that in business when they're surrounded by people that don't believe in them,
Yeah.
and they just put it off as, oh, that's just their opinion. But if you don't have people, if your closest people don't believe in you and don't support you, then yeah, good luck.
Talk to me about some of the challenges. I mean, we talked about some of the early stage challenges of like Cherry. Talk to me about some of the challenges that you face still in, having day-to-day business and perhaps competing with the fact that most of the distributors are in North America, most of the products come out of North America, most of the big shows are in North America. Like talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean uh I mean supply is the biggest challenge. Uh, a market that is not as ingrained, like they don't have cards ingrained in them.
Yeah.
Selling baseball cards in Australia is still really difficult, but you can see people with Dodgers and Giants jerseys on everywhere. Um, the leagues have huge followings here. The betting in those markets is massive here. But try and sell on baseball cards, and particularly you've got to get the cards here with taxes and shipping, etc.
Yeah.
And then, generally speaking, we probably get maybe 10 to 20% less on the actual RRP of the boxes because the market here is not willing yet to pay 800 Australian dollars, like maybe like 500 US dollars for a Bowman draft
Yeah.
jumper. They're just not that.
Whereas it might be the opposite in many markets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's even an established product. Then when you start going in the markets that aren't established at all, it gets even trickier. Um, the, but at the same time, those challenges are also opportunities. Like um, I would have, I'm undoubtedly, I would have had numerous people on my team poached by now if I was in a competitive space. Like
including
my
your
team,
wife.
yeah, maybe, maybe. Uh, um, uh, yeah, but so my team are unreal. And so there's challenges, and then there's opportunities. I love being in. I called it a line of one. It was never a line of one. There was always really astute trading card sellers here in Australia. Um, I just saw an opportunity to do it slightly differently. And right now, I mean, I can see around me people that are doing it differently again, and they are going to explode. I mean, there's a guy here in Tasmania, Pokey Lotto, who just he just hits different. And um, at some point in time, the product that he creates, if he continues to invest in and has the support around him, he's undoubtedly going to become, a serious player in that space. Albeit TCG's harder. Um,
Really?
yeah,
Like if you look at the PSA, the most cards that they've graded this year, TCG, and most grading companies, in fact, most like
mm,
aside from maybe SGC, the vast majority of their graded cards are coming from TCG. Like the TCG side of the hobby has absolutely exploded. I know that a lot of people talk about sports cards, and I mean, for the most part, on my channel, I talk about sports
yeah,
cards, but like the
yeah.
TCG side really has kind of absolutely popped off lately.
Yeah, it's absolutely exploded. The issues around margins and like work efficiencies. The reality is that the margins on booster boxes are extraordinarily low, and there's um, supplies every bit as hard. They're a mass market product, which means that generally speaking, um, mum and dad are buying them in mass market stores. So it's a it's a difficult space. We moved into the space in a strong way with singles in like 2019. So we can break down like 100 cases of gaming product, go to market with the singles and hit a very similar margin.
Okay.
Just a little bit, maybe a little bit over 20% on the total
It,
breakdown,
yeah.
which is sustainable, but it basically helps populate instead of one sealed box for 20% margin and one email address, you're getting maybe uh, 30 or 50 email addresses, and you're able to form those connections
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
30 to 50 people, and
People who
those
might
connections.
buy other products or communicate with your shop in any other way.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
um, there's a there's a with hobby sports cards, um, the margins are not necessarily any better, but they can be. Um, and if you have earned a certain supply, then you're able to, I guess, make hay while that sun's shining, reinvest it into what you do.
Yes.
Um, I think that is harder with gaming cards. I've only really seen gaming cards become a strong secondary market uh, in like maybe 1.5, 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, and having a business is about being able to do it over,
Like
10.
decades. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Talk to me about
so
allocation. So like, I mean, obviously there's no everyone knows that Fanatics is about to take over licensing with everything.
mm,
We talked about everything.
everything.
Literally, I mean,
Well, well,
okay. That's true.
lots.
We can talk about that. We can talk about that
Yeah.
even, right? Like
Yeah.
because North America, that's like everything, right?
Yeah.
Realistically.
Yeah.
Like they have pretty much everything in North America. But like I don't know what
Yeah.
they predominantly sell, what you guys predominantly sell. Like I was talking to Dan the Cardman, and he talked about there was some aspects of the hobby that flourish in Australia. They don't really do too well in North America, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk. We can talk about allocation. We can talk about what cards you predominantly do sell if TCG and baseball doesn't really do it. Because
Mm.
like the reason why I wanted to go there is like we started just talking about how baseball's kind of a tough sell in Australia. You know, when Fanatics takes over licenses
Mm.
of the NFL and the NBA, and you know, essentially having baseball. Like, how do you think that might impact things? Like, how are you anticipating you might have to pivot?
Yeah, well, I mean, Fanatics have been pretty clear about their vision, which is to increase supply by like five times,
Okay.
um, which is which solves a lot of problems
Yeah.
on one hand, and then it creates a whole bunch of challenges on the other. And the way that they um, the way that they prepare for those challenges, I think, is really important. And they're lucky that they've got such a good runway to set up for that. I mean, they're putting a great team together, um, and I think by the time they get the licenses, they will have learned a lot. Um, the the reality is that, and we're seeing it at the moment. I think with like products like Kakao and Card Fun, and which are just exploding. Um, there are a lot of licenses out there.
Yeah.
Um, I think the most profitable licenses for these manufacturers are likely the ones where they're not getting jerseys and autographs and constantly trying to get exclusive and all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So I feel as though they Fanatics will certainly pick up these incredibly proven licenses, but I don't think Panini will go anywhere. I think that they'll find I mean, they'll have a big bag of money with the World Cup just being the World Cup coming up in the US.
Yep.
Um, I reckon they'll find some pretty cool licenses. So I still imagine that that relationship that you build with those companies will be really valuable in terms of allocation. It's a um, it's a really tough one. Like and it moves in many parts. So the Australian dollar affects it greatly for us. We would have gotten probably twice the allocation we're getting now in maybe 2018. Um, and not through a lack of support. The distributors in the US would support us more. Panini, Tops, Upper Deck, they would support us more. Um, but we can't actually, we certainly can't rebuy because the dollar just
Yeah.
blows it out of the water.
Yeah.
But we haven't been able to buy as much of because of that dollar as well. So they're just we would land half the amount of product. So allocation is a massive part of it. Um, generally speaking, the way you go about getting allocation is by building a really strong relationship. There's no contracts, or there's very few companies that would have contracts in place. So it's exactly the same as with a partner. You're earning credits all the time by doing things, and then and that develops that bond, and then uh, you know if we move 50 cases of this product to Cherry, well, are they going to pay us? Is it going to go to the right customers? Are they going to reinvest in their businesses? Um, do we like the way that they go about it? Are they a good representative of the brand? All those things come into play, and um, I'm sure you'll get to it. But one of the things that we've always tried to focus on is one, what's best by the license or licensor. So what do the NBA want to see? What do the NFL want to see? What do the NHL want to see? We did the global games
I saw
recently with
that.
Upper Deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. That execution, and we had something to do with it. My guy Charlie, who runs all of our social channels,
Yeah.
um, who everyone thinks is me when they meet. I love the thing that you did. And it's like, it wasn't me. I don't even have the login details. That wasn't me. Um, uh, that whole exercise, like we sold double the amount of NHL that we would normally sell to people that had no previous interest,
In
certainly weren't
hockey
on our
cards.
books in hockey cards.
Wow.
So and Upper Deck were certain. Like Upper Deck was so they'd done it so many times.
Yeah.
They were like, listen, do this, build it, they will come. And in my head, I'm thinking, Oh
Because
man, I've been doing
Australia,
this.
this
I've
is
been doing
Australia.
I've been doing this for years, and I cannot get that many hockey customers out at one time. Like I've tried, and sure enough, we built it and just sold through. Boom, 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 boom. So that was fantastic. I think it's going to have. I think things like that have a great impact. But when you go to places like Macau and you see who's there, who's on the floor, those big manufacturers and suppliers, they're there and they're having conversations with you and they're seeing, okay, who's trying to grow these markets and
Yep.
how are they trying to do it?
Yep.
And they have conversations with you. And um, one of the things that I think maybe I got lucky because I got in early, and so I was able to make relationships with people when it was a little bit smaller, but it's still quite small at the top. And the people like Jeff Gordon at Fanatics, like a passionate collector, um, you're normally having a conversation with you about, why does that card have a border? Uh, would much prefer that not to be a sticker. Like those are the conversations. DJ at Panini always telling you about like the latest card that he's added to his like 54 set. Jason from Upper Deck came down, going around the city looking like, I'll call them dives in an endearing way, like real typical small dusty,
Yep.
you know, collectible shop with 5 boxes of cards, and he's like looking through the products, going, okay, they've got this product in, and that's from this manga, and um, the people at the top of this tree are passionate collectors, and so they, as much as I like to talk numbers with them, and you're limited with your time, and so you're going this percentage of people and this number, and they just want to talk about cards.
Yeah.
And so that's the relationship. That's how you build up. You show them that what you want to do is talk cards with people.
I love that. And I think that's refreshing for a lot of people to hear who don't necessarily fall on the business side. Like I know that everyone in the hobby is, to some extent an entrepreneur if you buy, sell, trade, whatever, right? But we're talking about, I mean, you guys have been in business for, 20 years and I'll be 15, but I'm anticipating the next 5. But this and a big player in a country, on a continent, kind of literally on an island by itself, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
um these are conversations that we don't really hear as collectors. We don't really hear that the people at the top are, die hard of a collector, maybe more than some of the people on the ground floor, right? A lot of times, they're under the impression that it's just all about the money. And
mm,
at least from the experiences that I've had as well with, some of these executives and some of these people that are higher up in these manufacturing companies, like it's just not the case at all. Like I mean, when I was talking to Billy Celio, even at Upper Deck, like he was offended that I didn't like one of his inserts. And I'm like, Billy, like I just don't like how it looks. Like it's fine. Like I'm not, like he's like, what's wrong with it? I'm like, I just don't, it's just not for me. But he was
yeah. So
so upset.
I had the same thing. I won't mention their name,
Yeah.
but they're very hype at one of the companies, and we were having a conversation, and we were talking really openly and transparently, and having opinions about stuff, and it was really happy. And then I said they said a particular product to me, and I went, oh, I don't really like the GSM of the product of the card, and his face just went. And it was just like this shift from happiness to sad. And I was like, shit, I've like massively offended him.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't expect it. Listen, many of those people, their jobs, like we have jobs. Their job is dependent on the bottom line of that
Yeah.
company. So it's impossible for them not to have that ticking over in their head. I mean, their performance reviews would be like, what was the what was the profit on XYZ? But that's not the first thing they're thinking about. And so I think that's one of the areas you talked about, the difference between TCG and sports cards. Sports cards is still a real hobby enthusiast category. The TCG stuff is very mass market, and so that nuance of sports cards is very much still ingrained in the people at the top. Is it always going to be the case? It's certain. No, it won't be. In 20, like I think there'll be a massive boom again in 20 years. I think the next 5 years we're going to see like a real strong growth in the amount of people that are collecting
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
10 years, you'll start to see a little bit of secondary market sort of growth with them chasing cards that were produced in 2027, and now there's 5 times as many people collecting, and those huge populations look small.
Yeah.
And then 20 years time, I just think this will become a serious, like, sports cards will be on in the same discussion as TCG.
I like that. I like that forecast. Why do you think that?
Because just small things that I notice, when small trends within the trends, they're just particularly. I remember when Luca and all those guys were blowing up, and people were talking about their pops, and then you start to see like products come out 5 years after that, and there's 20 more different variations, and there's double the amount of collections, but they're sold out. Like Flux Hoops sold out here within, I don't know, 2 weeks. Like Hoops used to sell out in 6 months.
I was gonna say 6 months. Yeah.
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 So, um, so
But do you
with
think
all
that
that,
that has to do with like Wemby? Do you think that
nah,
the fact that Wemby is this generational talent, like we're not even talking about who's going to be first like next year, right? Like
there's
we've been
always a
talking about
gen,
what.
there's
Okay.
always a generation of talent.
All right. I
There's a
like hearing that. It's true. It's 100% true. I mean, that's how I feel.
remember when it was Lonzo Ball?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean,
Give
there
me a
was a
break.
bunch of people on that train. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lonzo Ball. I mean, there was LaMelo Ball, generational talent. There was,
Yeah. I
I
remember
mean,
I remember people throwing Tatum's down on the counter because they were furious they didn't get Lonzo.
that's crazy.
So so it's selling out. All those extra collections, all that extra selling out literally, like maybe, I don't know, 20 times as fast. So that is just purely number of people who collect trading cards. That's all it is. Now it's probably more pronounced in this region because our floor was lower, but I'm sure it's not totally indifferent in the domestic US. So what happens when that goes times 5? Well, the same thing about 2023 cards is in 2028. And when you have a volume of people that collect trading cards that is on the scale of where TCG was in 2005, 2015, then that's when you start to get that real market penetration where everyone knows about it. People still here in particular, still don't know that trading cards are a thing. It's a
Yeah.
sad reality.
I mean, in regards to the hoops, how many of those people do you think are like the end consumer though? Do you know what I mean? Like I know that that stuff is selling out, and I don't doubt that, and it's selling out everywhere all the time, right? But like, how many
Yeah.
people are getting those cards and they're the end consumer? Do you know? Like, because that's stuff I think about in terms of like, if this hobby is going to get to where everyone needs to get to, right? Like, so much of the buying and selling aspect is based on speculation,
Hmm.
and I don't know how many people in the ultra modern market are holding these things because they genuinely like, this is my guy. You know what I mean? This is a guy I'm willing to go through his career progressions with, right? Like there are plenty of people who have LeBron's from like the day he stepped foot into the league,
Yeah.
right? And like Westbrook's from the day he stepped foot in the league, and Durant's from the day he stepped foot in the league. And I just don't know how many of these cards, specifically when we talk about like some of the lower end sets, like the the hoops and the flux and the I don't know how many of those are held by end consumers and not just people who are trying to make margins on the way to the top and then someone ends up with it at the end. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know.
Yeah. Well, my feeling is, if you had asked me the question 2020, I would have said not many. Um, like, we had to invest for a period of time. We had to invest quite heavily in things to protect being bought out, um, by bots,
Yeah.
uh, by other regions. There's the growth in the Asian region is, uh, largely off the back of buying out, websites. So there's there certainly was a time when that was the case. I think, now, as we've seen the secondary market of prices of boxes in particular come down, which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, Product like Flux is a perfect example. The general narrative around Flux was this product's no good. Its price kept on coming down, down, down. Less and less people wanted it. It became a product where you had to have a conversation with the customer to convince them that this was a good purchase. Um, and the reality was that Flux was a phenomenal product. If that product had come out 2 years or 3 years before at that price point, um, it would have been sold, and then it would have been resold for a profit. Then it would have been resold for a profit. Then it would have been resold for a profit. And now everyone would be chasing, Flux from 3 years ago. Had an amazing checklist of signers, incredible checklist of signers. The cards were very unique. You could pick a Flux card up, and it's very obvious. So there's a whole bunch of different, um, features to it. Um, and now it sells through much slower. Um, the people that are buying it are people that genuinely like that type of card, that see value in that checklist. And so I do believe they're going to end consumers, now. And I think that will continue to be the case. I feel as though we're seeing a lot of downward pressure on pricing. Um, and and that's a good, that's a really good thing, particularly as we're coming into a market where we're anticipating supply increase. So if we get that supply increase and the pressure gets on the prices and brings them down, um, then I think we end up with like a really nice, you know, crossover.
Yeah, I wanted to give you like just the floor to have like an unbiased opinion there because I do think that a lot more people are buying what they actually want. Now, I mean, whether that means that they're buying more singles, whether like that means that they're tapping into like their PCs, maybe they're going like your route and going Star Wars and really kind of
Mm.
embracing that because there's just so many different avenues to go in. And that's one of the benefits of this space growing and so rapidly and having so many people putting money and time into this space is that these niches are really kind of being built out, and so the people who participate in them are people who genuinely kind of want to be there. So yeah, I think that I couldn't agree more. I mean, if supply does increase to the point where like it's kind of free floating, and there's that still that downward pressure for pricing. I mean, we might see a price that is directly reflected on what people actually want to pay for this like for this product and for these cards, and it might not be artificially inflated in any way, shape, or form. So I mean, that's the goal for sure.
Well, I had I like went through the back of a warehouse, just before Black Friday. We wanted to see what we hadn't had in stock or we'd incorrectly marked as out of stock and stuff. And I found two very interesting examples. So I found a case of 1516 Donruss Hobby and a case of 1920 multi-pack Prism Basketball. The last time the boxes for multi-pack Prism Basketball were in stock, they were in stock for like around about 2000 US, which was their price. They sold out at that price. Um, the last time Donruss Hobby Basketball was in stock, it was in stock for 100, it would have been about 80 US.
Yeah, makes sense.
Donruss Hobby, like now, if it came out, would still probably command like 400, slightly different configuration now, but probably like three or 400 Australian dollars. Something that's like 250, 300 US. Um, the multi-pack Prism uh, will now like is worth nothing. It's like a 250, $300 box. The 15-16 had Jokic rookies in it,
Yeah.
um, who, spoiler alert, was a generational talent.
Yes. 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 And he wasn't even drafted. Or he was drafted in the second round. He was drafted, I think, in the second round during a Taco Bell commercial.
Yeah,
That's
it's
like
so, and I'm like, wow. So the floor for that product was so low, um, that, and you just forget, where you came from to an extent. Like I remember select basketball 13, 14, it was like 30 something dollars US a box, 30, 40 US a box. Because the only guy you could get was Michael Carter Williams. Like
Yeah.
that was like no one wanted Giannis at the time.
Yeah.
Um, so, and that product, looking back, like it's just a stunning checklist of signers and beautiful patches, and yeah, it's a different time.
Talk to me a little bit about Macau. So Macau had their first ever card show. It was well, not first ever card show, but first like big card show.
Mm.
There were some relatively big names on the football side. I think there was like
Oh wow, yeah,
Luis Figu there. I think Christian
yeah,
Vieri was
Figo,
there,
yeah, Bobo.
which is just unbelievable to see. Talk to me about how was it being there firsthand? What is the market like over there?
Mm.
Did you see a lot of people from North America?
Well, to start with, it was incredible. I think Card Hobby put it on. Uh, just extraordinary business. Such a uh, talk about executing. Like they just execute. Like they have an idea, then they throw however many hundred people at it, and just fantastic. I wish I had the resources. Um, the setup of the show is everything that I wish some of the big card shows in the US were. And I think it comes down to a little bit coming from an emerging market versus a really established market. I think if people went to a card show in the US and it didn't have, you know, 100 tables that had the exact same cards on them they've had for the last 30 years,
Yep.
people would feel like something's missing. Kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
there's Coach with his table and he's got those 70 vintage baseball cards that are always 30% too much to buy.
Yes.
Like, um, and so there's a sort of a vibe, there's a fabric to that, which unfortunately is very hard to move away from. This show was just gorgeous. It was like Comic Con meets like a vintage card show. It was like just the perfect, like it was like 30 tables, but within those 30, like actually, I'll give you an example. I only walked around the floor a few times because we had a stand, but on one of the first tables, I saw this 1819 Luca Opulence booklet number to 5. And I was like, wow, like I can just remember I had a customer at the time that was busting cases and cases and cases. He hit one of the Octo books, which was really cool. Um, and I was like, wow, imagine getting that card like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome to see it. Really cool card, beautiful design, good auto. I moved like 3 tables down. There was a guy that had another 2 of them. I moved another table down. There's a guy that had another 1 of them. Like 4 of the 5 were within like 8 tables. And so my head just popped. Um, uh, I I was lucky enough to had a customer in Melbourne who lived in the apartment next to me, who in 2014 purchased, I want to say 50 cases. It was at least 30 cases of National Treasures basketball. Now, at the time, my full allocation from everyone equaled like 3 cases. I was like, how? I'd buy 50 if I could get
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
So he broke all that, didn't get a single logo man, and didn't get a single Andrew Wiggins RPA, which was what he was chasing. Um, so it was horrendous.
50
But
cases.
50 cases. But I do remember him showing me his collection, particularly of Kobe's, and also showing me collections of his friends on his phone, and just like extraordinary. And that's what that that show was like. It was just we had a table that I thought was going to be really impressive, and heaps of cards no one had seen before, and I just felt inadequate from
From like a
like,
collecting. Like,
you know,
like
I was just like, I was like, my table is shit. Don't even bother. Keep going.
that's, that's hilarious. Do you
Like,
think that now an everyday person, do you think that would make them like trying to think about how I'm wording this? Would it be conducive for the everyday person to like attend a show like that though? Do you know like if all of the cards are in that like upper echelon, like
mm,
it, how do we is that like is there just like elite shows like how does that translate? Like what can we take from that? I want to know what the interaction was kind of like for the everyday
mm.
person there.
Yeah.
Like was it like a museum, for instance? Like was anyone buying?
No, it still felt very card showy. The the there's an opportunity. I mean, it was the first one.
Yeah, no, for sure, 100%.
Yeah, needed to be more sealed product.
Okay.
No one there could really partake in what it was that they enjoy doing, which is ripping boxes, I imagine. Um, or if they like being in breaks, no, you couldn't get into a break there. I was actually told to do breaks there by someone who is smart enough to tell me, and I didn't, purely because it just seemed like too hard.
Yeah.
Um,
Just
uh,
like the logistics.
the logistics of it, and there's not a language barrier as such. Their English is really good. My Chinese is not existent, um, but I just felt that it was probably going to be harder than in hindsight. Um, it would have been a very lucrative thing to do.
Yeah.
Like the floor needed people to be able to spend $50 to $100
Well, that's
and
kind
have
of what
their
I was
collections
saying, right? Like just like
100%.
how
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
And so um I think that'll be met. I think that need will be met next time. Um I'm not sure exactly how Cherry could meet it. I'd like to be involved in that. Um the the audience over there uh is different than it was in 2019 pre-COVID. My Chinese customers in Melbourne, because we've got a really strong Chinese population here in Australia, particularly in Melbourne. And if I had gold prisms in my counter, they were gone. They
And this
gone.
was this was 4 years ago.
4 years.
Yeah.
Gold prism gone. Kobe autos, Steve Nash, James Harden, any bang, bang, bang. And it would just be no negotiation, just whatever the price was on it, it would go. The the market there is definitely softer. I mean, the economy in China is struggling, um, and that was really evident. They had money for the specific cards that they wanted, really, and that was a really tight. Like, I collect this. I collect dual patch on card autos of Kobe Bryant. That's all I collect. I collect one of ones of Carl Anthony Towns. Like, no one does, but
Yeah.
like if that person was there, then they would have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly. That's
by
just
the
how
way,
specific.
I've got a one of one Carl Anthony Towns. If anyone
If anyone's
wants
looking
it.
for it.
a guy a guy sold me his collection of Carl Anthony Towns. I remember him selling it and saying to me like, "You're getting this for a steal," and I was thinking to myself, I can see his argument. Like I know the price I'm offering him are not great. I can tell. But at the same time, I've also had a lot of Carl Anthony Towns cards, and I know that they just don't sell.
No one buys them.
And and within that space of me buying it to now, Carl Anthony Towns cards definitely went up. Absolutely went up. They doubled, tripled, quadrupled, and I got lots of really nice Carl Anthony Towns cards, but I've still got them. And now and now they've dropped again. And so it's like it's a strange, some players are really strange. Like you
It's the
just
curse of the
don't
curse of
see.
the big man. It's the curse of the big man.
Yeah.
The NBA just doesn't like big men for the most part. I mean, even like Embiid, right? Like he's like
Mhm.
always in MVP conversations, but he just doesn't. His cards don't get love. You know, very
No, they don't.
seldom.
No,
Very
no.
seldom.
Yeah, very strange. Anyway, it's a strange game. So I've got some really nice Carl Anthony Towns. I don't know how I snuck that in there, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did.
Well, we were talking about the Asian show and just like how specific some of the collectors there were.
Love
Uh,
Anthony Edwards. They love Anthony Edwards, Steph Curry, Kobe Bryant, but really,
Anthony Edwards, eh?
yeah, man, love him. Mm.
Hmm. Maybe because he's in movies or a movie.
Hey, maybe.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, I'm excited to have they announced the second one? Is it going to be like an annual? They're going to try to make it biannual.
Yeah, they're definitely doing it. They're doing it annually. They've got I think they're planning on a number of shows around Asia and the Pacific, um, which if they want to do it, they'll do it. Like
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. Like the things that that company have been able to do. Um, it's a little bit like Gary V. Like
yeah,
I'm always blown away by like, Gary V goes, I'm going to make a trading card, and it's like if I'm going to make a trading card, it'll be like a trading card of like me, and I'll print 100 copies,
yeah,
and even I won't be able to get me to return my signed copies to the person who's going to ship them. Like that's
yeah.
how difficult. Gary V goes, I'm going to make a TCG that is going to, and then I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell it to predominantly sports cards people. It's like,
I
how do you
know,
do it?
I know. I mean, I'm
But that,
curious to see where that goes too. There was a lot of flack on V Friends, and there probably still is. But if he builds out that like universe, and I mean, his thing was he wants that universe to live long after he does. And so, at some
Mhm.
point he stops making content and the message just kind of comes from his caricatures, right? And
Yeah,
so, I mean, theoretically, you're betting on him not wanting himself to be the focal point anymore and kind of transitioning all those lores and lessons into, the embodiment of these characters. And that's kind of what you're essentially betting on with those, right? Like, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting case study.
it's a it's a product that I am keen to support, um, mainly because of Gary. Like he's an extraordinarily positive person, and I like the way that he puts himself 100% behind what he's doing. Um, I think that we've seen, there's a lot of other uh, brands and collections that pop up, and you, the only thing that's behind them is sort of a couple of design dollars and a distribution model. Gary's just committed to those things being successful and hitting the floor and kissing babies. Like uh, it's within him, and I think you're right. We've seen so many people, uh, so many brands take on Pokemon, and they just don't make it.
No.
But you've got to be the most passionate. It's like with protesting, the most passionate party is the one that eventually wins,
Yeah.
certainly in the short term. And so his passion outweighs most others. Um, so yeah,
Interesting. Let me know one thing that you're excited for going into 2024.
I mean, really excited for these Topps Chrome releases. Like we just saw the Disney one.
Yeah, that came out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
you did, yeah.
Out of nowhere.
There's rumors of others that I'm hearing, which very exciting. So,
Oh, you're like, I'm
um,
hearing some rumors.
yeah. I- there's a part I'm extremely excited about the Upper Deck Bedard, the way they handle that, the products they create. We've as basketball collectors and as enthusiasts of card collecting, um, those Upper Deck brands have like a really special place, and it took a decade for the loudest voice in the room, particularly here in Australia, to not be, bring back Upper Deck, because
Yeah.
people love that association of those Upper Deck brands. And to actually be people saying, you know what, Panini's doing a real good job. Like these brands are exciting, and the secondary market is really strong, and it took ages. So to actually see them showcased, they're going to be like some of the highest selling products, some of the highest selling cards. The guy's been amazing,
Yeah.
as far as I can tell. As
No,
a
no, he has been. He's been, I mean, he's having an incredible season, truthfully. I think he's got like 11 goals in like 26 or 27 games, which is very
yeah,
good for a rookie.
yes,
I mean, he's on pace for 40.
yeah,
Yeah. It's going to be
yeah. So
exciting.
so those cards that we're going to actually see them in a way that they're extremely collectible. And um, that kind of happened a little bit with McDavid, but the demand for trading cards wasn't there at that point globally anyway.
Even
So
the
that's really
marketing, like
exciting.
think about all the marketing and like the secondary marketing that's happening right now, right? Like think about how many people create content about sports cards now versus when
Yeah,
McDavid was in the league or coming into the league, right? Like
yeah,
you're not just getting like one ad on television or like one print ad or like, you drive by a bus stop and it says rip upper deck. Like everyone, like so many people are talking about these players and
mm,
these cards and there's just such a different interaction. And that's why when people say that like we're in like another junk wax era or junk slab era or I'm like, I can't, I don't think that that's accurate because of the amount of content that's built behind this stuff. Like, truly, the amount of, like, there's just whole ecosystems built on content right now.
mm.
And as long as people are talking about stuff, I just can't imagine it going any. Like, it just can't, it doesn't just
The,
disappear.
I understand the junk slab, um, you know, narrative, because the amount of the amount of slabs that coming in are like, Bol PSA sixes,
Definitely.
base rookies.
Yep.
There was clearly uh, a very short period of time where people made really poor decisions, absolutely included.
Everybody.
Um, yeah, um, and it's like anything. We were suddenly told you can't have this, and so everyone wanted it.
Yeah.
Like it just. Um, so there's that element, but at the same time, it's always hard to get the tens with no matter what brand you choose to get them slabbed in. Um, and they will always have a certain value to them, like a Pop One gold prism. So the population goes from 10 to 1. It's always going to be extraordinarily sought after. I don't believe there's a junk wax. I think that there's a whole bunch of wax at the moment that, as a business, we have to buy to maintain our relationships,
Yep.
to make sure that we're doing the right thing by the
Yep.
license. Or
Yep.
um, however, a lot of that stuff that isn't moving right now has really good content in it. And whether that's it's got Pele autos, or it's got sign it, like a lot of the MCU stuff has struggled because of it all having to be released at once. There's a story around that as well, but it kind of all came out clogged together. But there's so many. elements of those products that are really rare. Like there's so many signers in there that haven't signed before, that probably won't sign again. There's like one or two elements in the card productions that are very unique, or and I think that it's not junk like we remember in the 1995 stuff. It's literally like it's just paper and then product and then content that has a minimum of like 20,000 copies.
Yep.
It has to be junk. Like this stuff isn't junk. It's just surplus to the current demand.
That's an interesting take. I kind of like it. I mean, to your point about like the 2015 Donruss, right? Like at some point, like that was kind of like a wash. No one really wanted that, right? So,
Nope.
I, I mean, you look at rookie classes, and you look at, I mean, some of the people that are probably doing the best are wax holders, just people who buy and store boxes for and have for like the last 20 years. I mean, you can bet on a player or you can bet on the entire class, right? At
Yeah.
the likelihood that at least one player in that class ends up, I mean, you mentioned 2013, that entire class is Giannis, basically. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like pick a class and you can pretty much find one guy that you're like, that can support the price of this box for sure. And that'll support like a 3 or 4 or 5x what the retail was. So I mean, now does that happen forever? I don't know, especially given how hype these players are coming out now. But at the very least, if history is to repeat itself, like maybe not this set, but it sets in the future that potentially are like, that's garbage. Like you might want to hold on to those.
If you listen to some of the stories, Jeff, the owner of TriStar, um, if you ever get a chance to talk to him, his stories around the original Fleer, well, not the original Fleer, the Fleer Jordan rookie set, um, are absolutely incredible. And that was just written off. He was selling the Jordan rookies, and I won't ruin his story because I will absolutely ruin it because I don't have a very good memory. Um, but it was the same thing. Everyone was just like, "This is shit. This is the worst product that's ever been designed. There's way too much of it." Boom, boom, boom,
It's like upper deck
and
golf for Tiger upper deck golf. I
yeah,
remember that's people garbage. They're like it's
yeah.
garbage.
I will say this: I don't understand how there's numbered to 799 base set variations in the new Jay and Silent Bob product. I, I worry. Listen, I'm a massive Kevin Smith fan, but I do worry about that one.
You mean you don't want a serially numbered J card?
Not to 799. I've got my limits.
You don't think supply and you don't think there's enough demand for that?
Yeah, that Walrus movie just affected it, I think.
That's hilarious. I love it. Listen, Grayson, I've had an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. How
Mm.
does one contact you, or perhaps Cherry Collectables? How do they get, how do they start consuming your content? If they're in the neighborhood. I mean, I don't know how many people listen to me don't already communicate with your shop on a regular basis, but a lot of the North American people perhaps want to get to know you and get to know what Cherry Collectibles is all about. Where can they find you guys? Yeah.
You will okay, so we're at Cherry Collectibles on Instagram. That's probably our most engaging channel. Charlie creates amazing content there. If you are interested in watching breaks sort of over breakfast
Yeah.
in the US, particularly if you're interested in watching products, like, so we'll break the day a product comes out, but we're probably going to break it like just as you guys are waking up. So I actually met a few people at the Macau show that were telling me that over the years they've used us to get a real guide as to what breaks they want to enter that day with their, we'll call it, preferred breaker. Um, so you can watch Blake, who he's at Rain Blaker, but he's been breaking, like, I think, for like well over 5 years now. He's the one who says big boy, and he's an extraordinarily entertaining man, very messy man, but extraordinarily entertaining. So you can watch his breaks, and I mean, you can get involved in them. We understand that there's that there's some barriers there. People don't want to worry about all the shipping and stuff, but we've got a very long history of making sure that people get really good customer support. We have had very few issues, and we use obviously the best shipping methods. But it even if you're just watching, that's fine. If you are looking for some savings on products, I think our football and baseball can often be like a really good, and even maybe hockey could often be a really good buy for some customers. And you can go to that at cherry.cards, www.cherry.cards. Listen, it's been a pleasure being on, Coach. And I know when I was reaching out to people for a business coach, because I'm looking for someone to help take Cherry from a what I consider like an adolescent business to being a mature business. You reached out, and I appreciate that. So I do want to catch up with you.
Of course.
When we're next, probably I'm over at the next national, but I'm potentially, if there's a Tops or Fanatics one before that, I might pop over.
I'm just waiting on the announcement, man. I'm waiting. I mean, even the industry summits pushed to like May, I think.
Oh, okay. So they are going to actually have it. Good.
Well, yeah. Don't worry, I got you.
Yeah, I asked the people at the very top. I was like, "Come on, tell me off the record.
Yeah.
When is this?" Yeah, and they didn't tell me. So
Yeah. I don't
listen,
know for
not
sure.
that they would probably.
I don't know for sure. But yeah, that's what I'm hearing. But yeah, no, I really appreciate you jumping on today. And team, please go, check out Cherry Collectables and chat it up with Grayson. Watch their breaks over breakfast. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Cardboard Coach featuring Grayson. Team, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. We are out of here.